Welcome to English Simple Hub. We usually sit down here to unpack these massive, sprawling topics.
Right, things like global economics, the history of technology.
Exactly, or psychological theories. But today, we are zooming right in on something that looks tiny from the outside, but is actually a high-stakes minefield for millions of people.
We are getting laser focused on the IELTS speaking test.
And we aren't even looking at the really scary parts of the test, like
Right.
the long speech in part 2 or that debate in part 3.
No, we're looking at part 1, the introduction, the quote-unquote warm-up. Specifically, we're going to crack the code on how to answer questions about science classes.
It sounds incredibly niche, doesn't it? Science classes. But,
Yeah.
I mean, looking at this stack of notes and strategies we have here, it's so clear that the topic is just a vehicle. The real mission of this deep dive is to understand the anatomy of a Band 9 score. We're talking about the difference between someone who speaks English well and someone who speaks with the precision and flair of a highly educated native speaker.
Precisely. And I love that you called it a minefield, because the biggest mistake candidates make is assuming part 1 is just a casual chat to, calm their nerves.
Yeah, they think, oh, they're just asking about my school days, I can relax.
And that is the most dangerous assumption you can possibly make.
Because that's where you anchor your score, right?
Exactly. It is your first impression. If you walk in there and you give simple one-sentence answers like, yes, I liked science, or no, physics was hard, you are effectively capping your score.
What?
You're capping it at a band 6 or maybe a 7 before the exam has really even started. To get a band 9, you have to demonstrate complex grammar, idiomatic phrasing, and high-level vocabulary from the moment you sit down, even if you're just talking about high school biology.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We've got a roadmap. We're going to cover how to talk about likes and dislikes without being boring, how to handle the past tense trap.
Oh yeah, primary versus secondary school.
And we have a list of what we're calling the big 3 science vocab words that are absolute gold. Plus, we'll look at how to build a killer argument for those opinion questions.
It sounds like a lot for such a simple topic, but really these are structures you can just lift and shift to almost any other part of the test.
Let's jump right in then. Segment 1, the trap of do you like science? So the examiner looks at you and asks, did you like science classes at school?
Right, and the average student says, yes, I did, or no, I didn't.
Which, technically answers the question. It's the truth.
It is the truth, but it's linguistically empty. It gives the examiner zero evidence of your ability. It's just a wasted opportunity.
Completely wasted.
So the source material we're looking at today suggests a much more nuanced approach. It starts with a specific phrase, I guess so.
I guess so.
Huh.
Now, to a learner, that might feel a bit hesitant. Doesn't that sound like you don't know the answer?
I can see why you'd think that, but in a native context, I guess so is like a bridge. It signals that the answer isn't a simple black and white yes or no.
It opens the door for something more complex.
It opens the door for a contrast. And that is the key strategy here. Contrast. You don't just like something, you like parts of it while you dislike others. Complexity equals points.
This is where we get into what I'm calling the theory gap. The source explicitly says to distinguish between practical lessons and theory lessons.
Exactly. And let's really paint that picture. Practical lessons. That creates a specific scene. You're in the lab, you're holding test tubes, you're mixing chemicals, you're active.
Right.
Theory lessons, on the other hand, are passive. That's the teacher standing at the whiteboard just lecturing while you take notes.
By separating those two, you're already showing a wider range of vocabulary than someone who just says science was fun. But the real magic is in the adjectives. The source suggests the specific pairing. It says the practical lessons were fascinating, but the theory lessons were tedious.
Yes, tedious. That is such a fantastic adjective for this.
Why tedious, though? Why not just say boring?
Boring is a band 5, maybe a band 6 word. It's one of the first adjectives you learn. Tedious is high level. It means boring, yes, but it implies a sense of it being slow and repetitive and monotonous.
Oh,
It captures that feeling of time just dragging on while you listen to a monotone voice. Using tedious right next to fascinating shows real range.
And there's a grammatical trick happening in that sentence, too, isn't there? The source sentence is, some were fascinating, whereas others were tedious.
Ah, yes. If we connect this to how IELTS is scored, that word others is doing a lot of heavy lifting. It's what linguists call referencing.
Okay.
Others refers back to the lessons you mentioned earlier, so you aren't repeating the word lessons over and over again.
So you avoid that clunky. Some lessons were fascinating, whereas other lessons were tedious.
Exactly. Examiners love referencing. It makes your speech cohesive. It flows better. It's the glue.
Speaking of glue, there's another phrase the source highlights right at the start of the answer. On the whole.
On the whole. As in, on the whole, I guess so.
Which means in general, right?
It does. But here's the nuance, and this is really important for the listener to get about register. In general, or generally speaking, is perfectly fine, but it can sound a bit like writing, a bit academic.
Right.
On the whole is distinctly idiomatic for spoken English. It sounds natural. It sounds like something a native speaker would say in a coffee shop, not just in an essay.
Got it. So if I'm writing an essay, I stick to in general. If I'm speaking to the examiner, on the whole is where I get those fluency points.
Exactly. It shows you understand the context you're in.
Okay, so moving on. We've established we sort of liked science, the practical stuff, but only on the whole. Now the examiner shifts gears and asks about the past. Did you have science classes in primary school or high school?
This is such a classic trap. On the surface, they're just asking for your personal history. But underneath, they're stress testing your grammar.
They want to see if you can switch to the past tense.
Seamlessly. And maybe even more difficult, they're checking your ability to manage time while you think.
That's the hard part, isn't it? You're on the spot. I mean, I barely remember what I had for breakfast, let alone my primary school curriculum from 15 years ago.
Right. And in IELTS, silence is the enemy. You can't just sit there going, error, while you search your memory banks.
And our source drops a massive strategy here. I'm calling this the money phrase of the episode.
Oh, I think I know which one you mean.
It's gotta be, if my memory serves me right.
Yes. It is a beautiful phrase.
Why is that so much better than just saying, I think so?
Well, let's look at the mechanics. I think so is what, 3 syllables? It's over in half a second.
On.
If my memory serves me right,
Yeah.
that takes up much more space. It buys you 2 or 3 seconds of thinking time to actually remember what you did in primary school. But, and this is key, you are filling that silence with high-quality, idiomatic English.
That is such a good point. You're stalling, but you're stalling with style.
And it works for any question about the past. What was your favorite toy? If my memory serves me right. When did you first learn to ride a bike? If my memory serves me right.
It's so versatile. So once you've used that idiom, how do you actually compare primary and secondary school?
The source suggests sticking to that theory gap narrative we already established. It creates a consistent story. So in primary school, it was more practical. In secondary school, there was more emphasis on the theory.
More emphasis on, that's a nice collocation.
It is. It's formal enough to sound educated, but it fits perfectly.
Right.
But what stood out to you in that section?
For me, it was the very end of that sentence. The speaker says secondary school had more emphasis on theory and then adds one single word. Sadly.
Yes. The attitude marker.
It's just one word. Sadly. But it adds so much personality.
It really does. In linguistics, we call these stance adverbials. By adding sadly or unfortunately or thankfully, you aren't just reporting facts. You're sharing how you feel about those facts.
It changes it from a robotic report into a human conversation.
Precisely. A lower-level student says, "We studied theory. I didn't like it," which is choppy. A high-level student says, "There was more emphasis on theory, sadly." It implies the emotion without needing a whole separate sentence. It's dense, efficient language. That's a hallmark of fluency.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting for me. We've done likes and dislikes. We've handled the past. Now the examiner zooms in. The question is, what kind of science did you do at school?
Now, most people would panic here. They'd think, oh no, I need to remember the periodic table. Or they'd just start listing subjects. Physics, biology, chemistry.
Boring.
And repetitive. Repetition will kill your fluency score.
So what's the strategy?
The strategy is verb variety. The source provides a sample answer that is just a masterclass in this. Instead of saying, we did physics, we did biology, we did chemistry, the speaker uses 3 distinct verbs.
I have them here. Physics focused on, biology included, and chemistry covered.
Focused on, included, covered. 3 different ways to introduce a topic. It prevents that robotic looping of the same grammar structure.
And then, of course, you have to actually describe what those subjects are. And I love this because the source gives us what I'm calling the nuggets, these little specific details that make you sound like an expert without needing a PhD.
Right. You don't need to explain quantum mechanics. You just need the right collocations.
So for physics, the key word is energy. Simple enough.
Yep. Physics focused on energy. It's clean. It's accurate.
And then for biology, the source suggests animal and plant ecosystems. Now, ecosystems, that's a great word.
It's an excellent word. An ecosystem is, a community of living organisms, plants, animals, all interacting with each other in their environment. Using a precise term like ecosystems signals to the examiner that you have specific vocabulary for this field.
It sounds so much better than saying, we looked at nature.
Nature is vague. Ecosystems is precise.
And then chemistry, this one sounded the most oppressive to me. Chemistry covered atomic structure.
Yes, atomic structure.
And the source actually breaks down what that means so you can sound like you know what you're talking about.
It mentions looking at the atom, the nucleus, electrons, protons, and neutrons.
And again, listing those parts, nucleus, electrons, protons, it's specific, it's concrete, it paints a picture. If you just say chemistry was about chemicals, that could mean anything. But chemistry covered atomic structure, like protons and neutrons, is undeniable proof of vocabulary.
And also energy changes.
Right, describing how matter changes from solids to liquids to gases.
I can just imagine a listener thinking, I am never going to remember all that science stuff. But the reassuring thing the source mentions is that you don't actually have to go into deep detail about how an atom works.
Not at all.
You just need to memorize these specific phrases.
Exactly. You're memorizing collocations, words that naturally go together, atomic structure, energy changes, plant ecosystems. You just drop them into the sentence to show you have that vocabulary. You don't need to give a lecture on them. And there's a lovely little filler phrase at the end of that list in the source. After rattling off all these fancy terms, the speaker just says, that kind of thing.
Yes. It's perfect. It instantly de-escalates the formality.
Oh, why would you want to de-escalate it? Don't you want to sound smart?
You do, but you don't want to sound like a textbook. You want to sound like a smart person having a conversation. The phrase, that kind of thing, is a casual softener. It says, I know these big words, but I'm casual about it. It's very native-like to mix high-level technical vocabulary with casual fillers.
Okay, so we've covered the past, we've got the vocabulary, now we get to the heavy hitter, the opinion question. Do you think science classes are important?
This is where the test shifts gears completely. We are moving from description to argumentation.
And the source starts with a bang. Absolutely 100% yes.
This raises an important point about intonation and confidence. You can't just mumble absolutely 100% yes while looking at your shoes. You have to mean it.
Yeah.
It's a strong opener that wakes the examiner up.
But then, and this is the classic Band 9 twist we see in all the best answers, they don't just leave it at, yes, it's important because science is good.
No. That would be too simple. The source introduces a nuanced argument. It's the debate between depth and breadth.
Explain that for us.
Well, the sample answer argues that while science is important currently, some topics are covered in too much depth, too much detail.
Right, like realizing you don't need to know the exact atomic weight of boron for everyday life.
Exactly. The speaker suggests it would be better to have a broader general understanding. So instead of going deep into one tiny thing, we should understand the big picture.
And the example they use to justify this is just perfect for the modern world, the environment.
Context is everything here. The environment is a super topic in IELTS. It comes up all the time. The speaker says we need a general understanding of how our actions are damaging it.
How our actions are damaging it. I noticed the grammar there. Why are damaging?
It's the present continuous tense. It implies it's an ongoing process. It's happening right now. It's active. How our actions damage it sounds like a general fact. How our actions are damaging it sounds like a current crisis. Examiners really appreciate that kind of control over tenses.
So if I'm summarizing the structure of this answer, it starts with a super strong yes, then it pivots to a critique, but maybe we do too much detail, and then it offers a solution. We need a broader understanding, like for the environment.
That is critical thinking. You aren't just agreeing, you are evaluating how science is taught. You're showing you can look at a topic from multiple angles. That complexity of thought, combined with the vocabulary, is what pushes a score from a 7 up to a 9.
It's really impressive how much strategy is packed into just a few simple questions.
It really is.
Yeah.
It shows that the speaking test isn't just a chat, it's a performance. You need to have your script, your idioms, your collocations, your linking words all ready to go.
So let's do a quick recap before we wrap up this deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have. We started with the importance of contrast in that likes question using on the whole to set the register and distinguishing between fascinating practical lessons and tedious theory lessons.
Then we jumped into the time machine with that amazing idiom, if my memory serves me right.
A crucial phrase for buying thinking time. And we remembered to add attitude markers like sadly when talking of the past, just to add that personality.
Then we hit the big three sciences. We aren't just doing science. We are having physics that focuses on energy, biology that includes ecosystems, and chemistry that covers atomic structure.
And finally, we tackled the opinion question by balancing a strong absolutely with a nuanced argument about depth versus breadth, specifically relating it to environmental damage.
It's a complete package. But here is a thought I want to leave the listener with, and I'd love your take on this too. We've been talking about science classes for, the last 15 minutes, but surely these structures work elsewhere.
Oh, that's the beauty of it. Think about the practical versus theory distinction. You could use that to describe almost anything.
Give me an example.
Okay, imagine you get a question about your job. Do you like your job?
On the whole, I guess so. The practical side, meeting clients is fascinating, but the administrative side, all the paperwork is just tedious.
Perfect. See, you just lifted the entire structure and dropped it into a new topic, or even a hobby. I love cooking. The practical part of making the food is great, but the cleaning up is tedious.
Or describing a university course. My history course focuses on ancient civilizations, but it also covers modern politics.
Exactly. The vocabulary of focuses on includes and covers. That works for a training program, a book you read, a documentary you watched. The content changes, but the skeleton, the structure, remains the same.
So the mission for our listener is to take these science strategies and see where else they fit in their life.
Precisely. Don't just memorize the science answers. Master the structures.
I love that. Master the structures. Well, we are just scratching the surface of what's possible with IELTS prep. If you found this deep dive helpful, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. We have got so many more topics to break down, and we don't want you to miss out on any of these Band 9 secrets.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, but only if you use it. So subscribe, practice these phrases in front of a mirror, and go get that score.
Thanks for listening to English Simple Hub. We'll catch you in the next deep dive.
Goodbye, everyone.